When did someone play stupid games and win stupid prizes? My college roommate Ian and I were both philosophy majors, but he was the kind who wore a lot of black turtlenecks and smoked clove cigarettes and talked down to everyone he thought wasn't as smart as he was. He used to brag that he'd gotten through high school without reading a single book and that he'd paid a guy to take his AP exams for him. We were in the same upper-level ethics seminar, and I had a sinking feeling he'd been copying my assignments. The night before our first major discussion, he casually asked if he could take a look at my Kant paper to see how I framed my premises. I told him I hadn't finished yet, but then inspiration struck and I said casually, I'm probably just going to keep working on it at my desk until I crash. Then I went to my room, pulled out the real essay, and hid it in my mini fridge. And I started writing something special just for him. I called it intentional depravity theory, a fake moral framework I invented on the spot. According to this theory, ancient philosophers believed that doing the wrong thing on purpose was the only path to true self-awareness. I claimed Plato encouraged his students to commit small crimes in public for character growth. I said Cicero once faked his own death to see who at his funeral would cry the hardest, and I argued that virtue without scandal was just cowardice with better lighting. I also searched up a Latin phrase and treated it like a cornerstone of Stoic thinking, ovum iratus sequitur. I translated it as, only strife nourishes the soul, and said it was the foundation of modern philosophy. I knew it sounded profound enough and that Ian was lazy enough that he'd accepted that without Googling. I printed out my masterpiece and left it on my desk as bait. Just after 2 a.m., I heard him sneak out of bed and take pictures of every page. The next morning in class, our professor asked if anyone wanted to open the seminar by summarizing their papers. Ian raised his hand before she even finished the question. He stood up and said, it's easy to misread Plato if you ignore his views on deliberate moral sabotage. There's a lesser-known anecdote in early dialogue fragments where Plato encouraged his disciples to steal bread straight out of horses' mouths and to punch babies in the nose whenever they saw them. Obviously, that all plays into the famed intentional depravity theory, but most people aren't diligent enough to go through the old texts carefully enough to see that. I watched the professor slowly lower her pen while Ian just kept going. I had to hold my breath to keep from cracking up. Ian said, Cicero once encouraged his followers to lower their pants in unison every day in the public square so that they could experience group shame. It's the clearest example of the principle we all forget. Ovum iratus sequitur. Our professor tilted her head. Sorry, Ian, could you repeat that phrase? Ian beamed. Ovum iratus sequitur. Are you not familiar? It's a pretty underground theory, but it means only strife nourishes the soul. It's foundational in the early texts if you know where to look. Very slowly, our professor said, that is not a recognized Latin principle, and I believe what you've just said translates to, the angry man follows the sheep, which is not Stoic, or philosophical, or relevant in any way. Ian blinked. No, I got it from the reading. She said, there was no reading that referenced a sheep, Ian. That was when I raised my hand. I think what Ian read might have come from a parody I wrote. I was playing around with some ideas last night. None of it was meant to be taken seriously. The real version focuses more about Kantian ethics. I cleared my throat and gave a clear breakdown of my actual paper, with real sources and not a single barnyard animal. When I was done, our professor said, thank you both. That was a helpful contrast. Ian didn't speak for the rest of the class and quietly dropped the seminar 2 weeks later. But for the rest of the semester, anytime someone made a bold claim without backing it up, someone else would lean in and whisper, ovum iratus sequitur.